Welcome everyone back to my channel.
Lazy Sunday mornings hiding under.
I've been wanting to do some videos to talk about representation on this channel, and I've put out some of my book videos, but I haven't done a video solely focused to talking about limb differences. So I figured what we could kind of talk about is my journey to coming online and talking about my limb differences. So starting out, you know, growing up in a small town, I guess I didn't really have any desire to be an influencer or talk about my limb differences online. That was never something that I really envisioned for myself, which is so funny because my senior project was actually about this right here, if you'd believe it or not. So my senior project topic was basically how not to bully and how to go and approach questions for people with limb differences. So last year during Thanksgiving, Charles and I actually went to visit my parents, and during that time I was kind of going through drawers of memories and unboxing things, just trying to find certain things. Some of the stuff that I mainly wanted to bring back home was some of my favorite childhood books, maybe some movies that I wanted to bring back too, and just like little memories and stuff like that that I held very close that I wanted to bring to our own home. And it was during that time that I actually found something that I was not expecting and just brought up so many memories, and I wanted to go and talk about it here. My senior experience. So in high school, in order to graduate as a senior, we were required to do a senior project. And during the few years leading up to being a senior in high school, I had no idea what I was going to do. Everyone might have had an idea or kind of thought about it a little bit. I honestly had no clue. And so when it came down to deciding what I wanted to do, I thought about why not talking about my limb differences and talking about bullying and educating little kids. And I will tell you now that I had no plans on, you know, years down the road going and doing anything about advocating with limb differences, going and talking about that stuff. I think for me personally, because I did not know too much about my limb differences aside from what my parents had told me, knowing that I went and got surgery and all that stuff, those were the few things that I knew, but I wanted to know more. So I figured by choosing my senior project to be about my limb differences, I could not only go in the education route, but I could also go and educate myself. So that's kind of what led the way to me doing my senior project about my limb differences. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that I did incorrectly with this is I used the wrong term for my limb differences. So as you all know, I have ectrodactyly, and I'll put the definition right up here. But during that time, all I had were the resources of scientific journals, books that had been published during that time, and good old Google. And when I was going and Googling things, I just had a few words such as like missing fingers, yada yada, stuff like that to try to do my search. And unfortunately during my search, none of them brought up ectrodactyly. And so the term that I had gone with was symbrodactyly, and I'll also put the definition up for that one. So throughout my senior project and doing the paperworks and everything like that, I used the wrong term. So knowing what I know now, I of course would love to go and fix all that stuff, but you know, that was stuff that I did back in high school, and I don't really want to retype everything. So yeah, like I said, my senior experience was over my limb differences, and my friend and I, one of my friends who's actually hopefully going to be my bridesmaid for my wedding, I just sent her a package recently, so we'll see what she says when she gets it. But anyway, she helped me go and film for my senior project. So when you do your senior project, at least with my school, you had to go and have something physical. For the judges, you had to present something that you created, that you made. And so for me, we did a videotape, which I ended up going and editing. I had no editing experience back at that point. I think I just had whatever program was on my dad's PC. Yeah, so my friend, she ended up going and helping me record while I went and talked to this elementary school class. When we were kind of walking around, we went back to the middle school. When we went there, we actually saw our handprints that we left on the wall. So with my middle school, when we were graduating from 8th grade, we left our handprints on the wall. And we did the same thing again when we were seniors in high school. So I was like, you know what? I think that would be great to have on the cover of my binder, which would have all the resources for my senior project. So it was just a very cool thing. It was something I very much appreciated that I took a photo of because I could keep it later down the road. And just looking at this, like, it kind of fills me with joy. Like, I don't know if these handprints are still at the school or if they painted over it, but for a period of time, my handprint was on the wall, and that's just so neat to think about, like someone walking down those halls and seeing that. I don't currently have the binder that I used before for everything, so I kind of put it in a binder that I actually have some of my old Belisara cards. If you know about these cards, if you were a horse girl growing up, then you know. But yeah, so I have a lot of my stuff in here. Some of the stuff would be like the thank you letters. We had to do a table of contents. So with that, it had the thank you letter to the judges, had your letter of intent, your senior experience approval form, all signatures, because you did have to get, I think, a certain amount of signatures in order to do this project, an interview with your mentor, and a little biography about them. So for this senior project too, you had to go and have mentors who could go and guide you along on the way for your project, and they had to be someone that had experience that represented what you were going to be doing. During the time period that we did this, we took journals. So I believe when our experience started, it was in September, and then it finished in April, which, you know, is Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month, which I did not know back then. So it's kind of funny to see those things line up. And then you did your product logs, your mentor hours, your original research paper, and then your edited research paper, and then your mentor evaluation, oral presentation evaluation, senior experience self-evaluation, and then your resume, any reference letters, technology that you used. And then for me, I went and presented this to the 5th grade class, and I only picked one class when I went and did this. I didn't do it to all the 5th grade classes because that would have been a lot. I was in theater back in high school, but I still had some issues with speaking in front of people, especially if it wasn't a script that I was going off of and it was something that I was talking about and presenting. And then there were individual thank you letters that I believe those were for once we actually knew who the judges were, and then we could go and personalize them for that judge. That's everything in here. I do want to kind of show you some of the pictures and different things like that that I passed around. So what I titled my paper, it looks like I titled it Congenital Anomalies. So yet again, not knowing the terminology that we know now, where it's limb difference and stuff like that. So again, that kind of shows the difference in education that there was back when I was in high school versus now in 2024, and all the things that are out there for education and better representation, which was not there when I was growing up. So for my presentation, I originally had planned on doing a special bullying lesson, which Charles will actually find funny because he's a school counselor and he does a lot of different lessons for his kiddos. And so I remember I had to go through these different school lessons to find something that resonated, and the one that I picked was Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. So this lesson plan is for grades 3 through 5, category, Respecting Differences and Promoting Acceptance, topic, Promoting Respect, and then it's called Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover, and it talks about the background, and then learning outcomes, materials needed, and yeah, I have it all in this. I had planned on originally going and talking to the kids about that lesson, going and working through all those things, and then afterwards we'd talk about questions. They could go and ask me about my limb differences and everything. But that's not how it went. So this is really a blast through the past because some of the stuff I don't remember at all. Like I said, the lesson I was going to be teaching these kids was don't judge a book by its cover. And it looks like it was by George Eliot. So this was kind of my whole rundown of what I was going to do. I was going to give my introduction, and I was going to introduce myself before they had time to learn anything else. And then start out by showing them the books you brought and ask which ones they would read. And it doesn't seem like I have what books I had. But then I go and ask them questions about why they chose that book. Maybe let them know that you would have made those same decisions. But then go into describing that after you read these books, you realize that they were much more than they first appeared. This is why they shouldn't always judge a book by its cover. This quote is by George Eliot, who's actually a woman. Also known as Mary Ann Evans, was an English novelist, journalist, translator, and one of the leading writers of the Victorian era. She used a male pen name to ensure her works were taken seriously in an era when female authors were usually associated with romantic novels. Oh, this is really cool. Like I said, I don't remember doing any of this, so I'm guessing that this is actually a picture of Mary Ann Evans, who was George Eliot that made this quote. And then it says, hopefully at this point they will have noticed your hands. If you have noticed a few eyes straying to your hands, ask if they notice something different about you. Explain to them about your hands and feet, also talk about your dad. I'm kind of guessing how I kind of went around this. Well, like I said, this was the plan, but I'll tell you how it actually went once we walk through these. So then after that, I think this was when I kind of brought up this photo which shows my dad's hands. So my dad has 5 fingers on his left hand and then 4 fingers on his right hand. But it didn't affect anything else for him. Whereas for me, I have 4 toes on my left foot, but the big toe is basically 2 toes combined, and then I have 2 toes on my right foot, and then as you can see, both of my hands. So I had this photo to go and pass around to them, going and explaining how my hands looked versus how my dad's hands looked. And then I had plans about telling them about Jessica Long, who was in the Winter Olympics. And then I was going to show a picture of her and ask them if they believed she was able to do things, then show them the pictures of her and talk about her career. So then the next photos I had were these ones. And like I said, there wasn't really a lot to go off of when I was doing my projects, so I had to kind of go off of what I was able to find. And there are plenty more, Olympians that have limb differences, or Paralympians that have limb differences. So now we know about a lot more people that are, shown in the media with limb differences compared to back then where it was very difficult to go and find anyone when I was doing my searches. After that, it looks like I had talking about myself, such as dreams and activities. And then I was also talking to them about my dad and his experiences with bullying. It's so interesting going and looking through this and kind of seeing some of the different things that I had planned. So, like I said, I went and talked about my dad and his experience with bullying and how when I was born, him and my mom both made it their goal to sign me up for all these things to show kids that were able-bodied what type of stuff I was able to do. And back then, at least for me, because I grew up in a small town, we didn't know the terms ableism or able-bodied or anything like that. So none of those things that I know now are present in basically this guide for my presentation that I was going to give to these kiddos. And then the last point that I was going to do there was talking about my achievements, such as being in drama club. And because of my self-confidence, not too many people have noticed my hands until it has been brought up. For this specific example, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but that's kind of the point of this video, is just kind of diving into the past, going way back when I did a project that was about something that I didn't know I'd be talking about today and would be very present in a lot of my platforms. I think the specific example I was thinking about with this, so we went to state 1-acts for, was it my sophomore year of high school? I think it might have been my sophomore year. But anyway, we were doing state 1-acts, and our theater director, she was sitting next to one of the other directors she knew, and I guess the director made a comment about me and how they were impressed by like my voice or how well my projection was and stuff like that. And then my director's like, "Did you notice her hands?" And the person's like, "No, why?" And my director's like, "Well, she has 4 fingers." So that was really cool. I remember my director was always so, I don't know, like you could always tell there was like a special place in her heart for me, just seeing my confidence grow, especially having my limb differences. So yeah, that's always a fond memory to look back on because she did tell me about that moment and having that conversation with someone she knew. And then it looks like one of my other topic points was talking about social media, race, and appearance, dressing up, and bullying. And okay, it looks like one of the things here that I talked about was how social media plays a huge part in saying how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to be, and it just makes things a lot difficult. I'm not quite sure with some of the other points that I had here. I don't know if I was trying to talk about some of the different parts of bullying and how they can be present in social media. I'm not quite sure where I was going with, or what direction I was going with there. And then I have a definition for you can't judge a book by its cover. This means you shouldn't form an opinion on someone or something based purely on what you see on the surface, because usually after taking a deeper look, the person or thing will not be what you expected it to be. And then I guess this was something else I went and added more on, which was when looking for something to read, people oftentimes only glance at the cover of a book before making a decision. Due to this, many books get overlooked, merely due to the title or picture on the front of them being unappealing to the eye. However, if one were to open the book up and peer into its contents, they'd probably find that they were missing out on some interesting and valuable information. Hence, don't judge a book by its cover. I do really like that. Oh, and then I guess I put it into terms of how you could use it talking about people. And I went and said, well, before getting to know someone, a person tends to first judge others based on their outward appearance, their nationality, or other external factors. It's a shame though, because while a person might look rough on the outside, I don't know why I used rough. I probably couldn't think of another term. Different probably would have been a better word. You can never truly know what they are like on the inside unless you open them up and get to know them. And I have open in quotations. And then in conclusion, people will always try to talk, pressure, bully you out of doing the things you want to do. If you allow them to stop you from doing something, you may end up regretting it down the road. Don't let people talk you out of your dreams. I love this. So there's definitely a lot of themes that are still present. I really do like how I used books, which is funny because now this channel is kind of going the direction of talking about books a lot more, but also, you know, bringing up disability chats every now and then. So I really love how with this senior project that I did, I combined two things that I love so much. So it looks like I have a few different photos. They might be a little bit difficult to see. So the first one is just me in a dress, probably going to church or something. And it looks like my hands don't have surgery done on them yet. Try to see if I can get that glare out of the way. And then the other one is after I've gotten surgery on, I think, both hands at that point, because it does look like the other hand is stitched together and isn't as spread out. But yeah, I have a cast on one hand and then not on the other. And we're with my childhood cat, QT, which was quadruple terror. And then I have another photo where I am showing the cast yet again and just walking around in the kitchen. And then another one just all dressed up. I know that for these, we had to dig through a lot of photo albums for different things. Unfortunately, when I went back home and I did find my senior project, I didn't find the video that I had used to show the kiddos. So I can't quite remember what I had on there for them. I want to say that maybe I did include one of the videos, which I have in one of my earlier YouTube ones, where it shows the video my dad filmed for the Shriners Hospital when I was getting my surgery done. And it was basically to go and show them my hands, the mobility, as well as my feet and how they moved around, so that the surgeons could go and watch that and prepare before they ended up going and seeing me in person and conducting the surgery. So we just looked at what the outline of the presentation was supposed to look like, but in reality, when I did my presentation, I remember I was so nervous. I ended up just standing in front of the classroom, taking off my shoes. I wore some sandals so I didn't have any socks on, and then all of a sudden, all the questions came forward from all the kiddos. They were asking me different things about having a limb difference. I believe I might have told them just some of my own experience with bullying, some of the stuff my dad experienced, and ultimately just talked about that stuff. But I did not talk about the lesson at all like I had planned. It just kind of turned into one of those Q&As where the kids were genuinely curious and asked me questions. And I remember I told them, you know, don't go and stare. You know, it's very uncomfortable. Just go and ask questions. Because as someone with a disability, we know when you're looking at us, and it's very obvious. We know you want to ask a question, so just ask it kindly and respectfully. Also, I will add that I just said people that have a disability. I did not think I had a disability back during that time when I made this presentation for my senior project. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I found out I had a disability. So looking back on this project was really neat because it kind of showed the difference in education from what I knew then and what I was able to find compared to the things I know now and how much more educated I am, which is really, really neat because yeah, that will be going on 10 years, which is wild. Yeah, because I graduated high school in 2014. So 10 years ago, I did this project, and that was the knowledge I had during that time compared to now and knowing all the things that I know to this day. So it's kind of wild to think about, okay, what more will I be learning over the next few years, and how much more educated will I be 10 years from now in the future? So I think that's really cool. And I don't know about you, but I do kind of like looking at memories from the past and just kind of getting that nostalgia of some of the things that happened during that time. I find it so funny that, you know, back then, not even thinking that I would be a limb difference advocate, talking about my limb differences openly online, that I would have done this project. Because for so many years, I kept this part of me hidden online. People that knew me in person knew about it, but no one in the online world did. So yeah, it's just some interesting foreshadowing that happened there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and me just kind of reminiscing through the past. But I thought it was a lot of fun, and it's interesting to see how you might have known something about yourself that you didn't think you'd be doing in the future. So yeah, going through the past and looking at my limb different project for my senior year. Also, I don't want to forget to add this piece because it's something that is very important to me. I want you all to remember that you are very capable and worthy of following your dreams. Don't let anyone talk you out of them. All right, talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. Okay. Senior experience self-evaluation. That sounds wrong.